Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Cybersecurity Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Thursday, October 10th. And this morning, we had economic reports out this morning just to kind of recap the whole day for you. CPI came in a little bit hotter than expected, but point two, and again, like I'm not trying to sugarcoat this stuff, but there's a lot of error and variability when you look at like point two versus point one. And same thing, like if we saw this come out at zero versus point one, I would probably say the same thing. A lot of people talking about initial jobless claims ticking a little bit higher. For a while, these things were like on the screws every week, so there's a little bit of a difference there. But again, we're talking about 28,000. So my personal opinion, like I don't know if that really changes things. I don't know if anybody really changes what they were doing from yesterday to today based on these numbers. That said, we'll get the PPI numbers. And again, if the number comes in at 0 or point 0.2, I really don't think too much of it. But there is some talk now, like what the Fed is up to and what they're thinking, and there's been a lot of Fed speakers on the tape about whether or not they're going to cut interest rates again. And my thought, it's just funny. I think how financial media gets so hooked on to these things, like, oh my God, like they may not cut interest rates again. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've seen a market that has rallied very decently, and it really has had nothing to do with what short-term interest rates are doing. So, yeah, would it be a little bit better if they cut interest rates and provided, more liquidity into the market? Sure, you could argue that, but I think part of it too, and again, like I don't like to get political in our trading room, in the Tribeca Trade Group trading room. I don't like to get political like online or anything like. But it is what it is. Like, why do you think that this market has had this, where do you think the liquidity is coming from? Well, people forget. They're so fixated on what the Fed is doing in short-term interest rates that they kind of forget the other side of the equation, which is fiscal spending, right? And, you've seen, if you follow Zero Hedge or if you follow, anybody who's posting what the debt is doing, right? Fiscally, they continue to provide stimulus, right? And I don't know if it really is going to matter in regards to that stimulus, in regards to who the next president is, because they just continue to pump more money into the economy via, a whole different, government spending, hiring government workers. So, I sometimes I start these videos on a little bit of a rant, but it's not all about monetary policy. The government is just increasing debt more and issuing new debt more and more and more. We have 3 bond auctions this week, and they're going to continue. Like they're going to continue to issue bonds, and that's probably why you don't see bonds really rallying too, right? Before we get into this, I think what's going on, I'm going to give Ramp Capital a mention, because he mentions that since the Fed cut their interest rates 50 basis points a couple of weeks back, right? Again, that's the short-term rate. The 10-year has done the exact opposite, right? Has actually given back. So if you look at the 10-year, we'll look at this in terms of rates rather than we'll look at this in terms of rates rather than bond prices, which I'll look on the next page. Remember, they're just inverse to one another. You just have to be comfortable with that. But here's the move since they, since they cut interest rates on the short end of the curve. On the long end of the curve, rates have gone up 50 basis points, right? So, again, you could make the argument that it's just because there's so much supply out there that the market can't really absorb it. And, that's what's causing bond prices to go down. Now, are we at a very interesting level at this point? Yeah, we are. We're all the way at the TLT has come all the way down 50 basis points, and this would be a good place for a bounce. Now, it doesn't mean a bounce is going to happen, but I kind of like I was looking at I think the November 96 calls, I think are like trading at like a $1.25. I think that that's not a bad play into going into an election, which is probably going to be pretty interesting. And also, probably why the VIX is staying where it is right now, which is above 20. All right, let's get to stocks. All right. So in any event, I like to talk bonds because bonds are a big part of this market. Yeah. So Ultimately, what I've said, and I put this out in my on Substack every morning. I provide a little bit of commentary about what levels to watch in SPY, Qs, and IWM or S&P futures. But my thought is, as long as we're doing this and floating back higher, today was basically an inside day for SPY, but as long as we stay above this October value area of 474.43, and as that ups in individual names, then I'm going to continue to kind of do what I'm doing, which is, try to make money swing trading. And that does require, like on a day like today, where I thought that there was a decent amount of rotation, it does require me to kind of sell some things and maybe put on some new trades, right? So today I thought what was very interesting, gold, which outperformed, um, and I'll bring up a chart of gold because I think it's interesting at this point. We'll bring up gold futures here for a second. But notice what happened here. We're again, we'll just wait for this to upload. For whatever reason, my computer's a little bit slow today. But right where we needed to see support at top of the value area. So here's your breakout and here's your retest. So I like gold here. 26.32 is a level to trade against. And if you look at a couple of the gold miners, I think they look pretty decent too. They've had pullbacks. Look at AGI. This is Alamos. Remember the Alamos. You could trade this versus 1936, right? That and the 50-day moving average. I like when the bottom of the value area lines up versus the 50-day moving average. If you want a bigger gold miner, I think Newmont is in a good spot too, right? So again, I'm kind of leading off with something probably not as popular as what everybody wants to talk about, maybe a Palantir or NVDA call buying today, which, yes, it was pretty insane to see that many calls being traded for, I believe it was March calls in NVIDIA. So I'll get to that in just a second, but I thought this, besides, the largest performers of the day, I thought the cyber stocks were very impressive. And we started to see this a couple days ago with this break to new highs right here back on Tuesday, right? And, we just haven't seen the cyber names really, like a bunch of them, be at the top of the right, like top of the leaderboard. And what we've seen the last couple of days is that you're not only seeing like one or two, but you're seeing like five of them. Which to me is, I like to see that. When you look at like a sector ETF and you go through individual charts, you're going to find that there's a lot of these with big momentum in them, and I think very impressive. The one that I gravitate towards, I have this both in the TTG trend portfolio, and I have this in my trading account too, is FTNT. Right? Remember, this is the one that had the strongest earnings and biggest performance thereafter. It's been going about sideways for the last month and a half, but look at the move, and I think you'll see too. I hate TradingView doesn't. I like TradingView very much, but I don't like when they cover up the volume like this. And then there's probably some setting I could use to take that away, but that's okay, just from a visualization standpoint. But you could see that the volume is increasing on the breakout. So you go through a number of other names. Um, Have this name too, which is so a lot of these software slash cyber names, like this thing looks pretty good too. This is Commvault Systems, right? Another one that's like kind of involved in the cyber move. I know Palo Alto is getting a lot of attention. I also like Sentinel One, which I think I covered earlier in the week. That name is breaking higher too. CyberArk is another one. All right. So again, notice that you're seeing like the same type of movements in all of these names. Somebody really wants to be in these things, right? So there's CyberArk, and the last one that there's CrowdStrike, right? Which again ran into a whole bunch of problems a couple months ago. First time back over the 200-day moving average since it broke down here. So you can go you can go long CrowdStrike if this is a name that you like for the long term. Keep it simple. Use the 200-day moving average. You could also use the October top of value area. But again, I thought this group was very impressive, and that was the cyber chart hack. You could also look at too. There's a lot of crossover between these ETFs, but I got a lot of people today talking about Cloudflare today too. I mean, that's a huge move for Cloudflare, and very impressive. Now you're also seeing things like, I traded some Square today. This is not a name that I've traded in a while, but we're seeing a lot of positioning. there's a lot of call buying and in various different groups. And like this is another one where I feel fine, I feel okay holding for the in the short term. And a lot of these names they really haven't done much in the last couple months too. So, that's the opportunity. I was on a Twitter space earlier and somebody was saying, a lot of these names they just have been out of favor for a while, and even if you go back further, go back the last 6 months, what has Square done? Basically nothing. So it's nice to see some call buying and something that is just starting to maybe break outside of its value area and go from there. Other you could go through software names, the whole bunch of them, but here's IGV, right? And again, there's some crossover. There's some cyber names in here, but it was really I do think the cybersecurity names were strongest today. Even though like I still like ServiceNow. That also saw some calls. That is all these names are gonna, well, the majority of these names are gonna have earnings, but it's another name just to kind of get off the software group and onto a couple other areas of the market. But I like this name a lot too. This is Flutter Entertainment. So this is not DraftKings, but the other name that's in the space. Think of it in 2 seconds here. But like this break here, break higher. I think this went up on like an upgrade, or I forget what this with the exact. I'm forgetting a bunch of things. I've been a little bit under the weather, so that's probably why. But regardless, I could still read the chart. Nice break higher. Price settles back in, fills this gap into the 20-day moving average, and this looks pretty good to me. Another one too, CAVA. Right, CAVA has just had this big day a couple days ago, but look at it just, little digestion here right into the top of the value area. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. After, these names have been kind of getting rotated around where they're strong one day, then for next 2 days, they kind of digest and then they go right back out to the high. So I like Kava here. Another name that was strong yesterday with ZETA, right? This is a smaller software name, huge gap up here. Look at it come in here and fill in here, fills the gap into the 5-day moving average. And I like this name too. Again, I don't know what it's going to do tomorrow, but I just like the overall trend, right? That's in place here and buying a little bit of a dip, even though that's not much of a dip in the chart, but a dip today, I think looks pretty good. So I'll leave it there. So ultimately tomorrow we got the PPI report, but until things change technically, right? I like what's going on in this market. I don't like everything that's going on. I don't like how the dollar has been this strong, and interest rates continue to kick up like this. But I think that there's plenty of trading opportunities. How could I forget NVDA? Might as well go through this really quickly. But yeah, I mean, here's some of the March calls that were bought. You could look at this. People love call activity. I get it. It does show that somebody's positioning. A lot of times, if somebody really does the research and why they like the name, but at this point, everybody's familiar with this name. And I think the chart, like, after a nice break higher, spent a little time digesting. So, I'm long this name. I'm long it in my trading account. I've been long it for a long time in my TTG trend portfolio. So, um, you know, you can only speculate, but I mean, the trend looks pretty good, and you're above this high, and you're still not at new highs, but this has been digesting for a few months, right? And I've been switching around my exposure and semis. I did this yesterday. I did not do a video yesterday, but I was long a little bit of AMD for the event, not today, but I sold it yesterday and I did like a substitution trade. I made just, a little bit of money on this move up. I'm all about buy the rumor, sell the news, right? It plays out over and over and over, whether it's an event, whether it's, a widely anticipated event. But more often than not, it just plays out like this, right? And the stock was down 4%. Now I know Lisa Su will be on CNBC in a little bit, but again, like these trades and same thing like Tesla, I don't have a trade on. I'm long. I do have this name on long in the TTG trend portfolio, but why this name didn't rally into the event, I don't know. Maybe there's too many doubters in this, so maybe that leaves this name to do something if they say something positive later tonight. I do like it where it is technically sitting right at 239. So we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, that is it for the video for today. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.